Hey guys, it's Oージマン, and welcome back to the next part of my series of theオージマン Masterclass. In this part, we're going to be covering how to learn new vocab and the kind of stages you go through when learning Japanese, and how when you're a beginner and intermediate, how it changes how you learn vocab. So before we get too much into actually vocab itself, there's one piece of knowledge that you need to have before we start getting into vocab, at least the way that I learn vocab. And that is you need to have at least a real foundational knowledge of what pitch accent is. So for those of you who don't know, in Japanese, words have pitch accent. And what that is kind of like, think about Chinese, because that's the most obvious example, how there's tones in it. It's kind of like that, but still different. So for instance, like you might have a flat kind of pitch for the word like gakko. Like I used the example in my last video, I use that because most people know it means school, That's flat, gakko is flat, right? And so there's different shapes of, different things that have different shapes, right? For example, in the dialect I speak in Japanese, like man, otoko goes otoko, and it goes down, right? That's, there's different kinds of pitch like that. So words have different shapes in pitch, depending on what the word is and what kind of region you're from. So if you're interested in learning standard Japanese, which is Tokyo, like Tokyo itself, that little region there is standard Japanese. I'll put up a little thing here of like the kind of like regions of Japan. All these different colors, they're different like pitch accent patterns for words. Like they're like different, but depending on the region, the pitch accent changes for each word, okay? So some words remain the same, but some words change. And now for me, I speak the Kansai dialect mainly. So my pitch accent is going to be different to someone who's learning standard Japanese, the Tokyo dialect. And so because of that, if you want to learn the Tokyo dialect, what I recommend you do is you go watch, say, Matt vs. Japan's new video on pitch accent. It's really, really good. Or you go and do, I think Dogen has a series on his Patreon, which I did a long time ago on standard Japanese pitch accent, phonetics and all that. I recommend that as well. If you're interested in doing standard Japanese pitch, go in and do that, yeah? But otherwise, I'm going to be explaining the real basic stuff for the Kansai pitch because that's what, I kind of specialize in. So I'm going to teach you the real basic stuff now, what you need to know, and then you can go in and use that to start learning vocab. Later in the series, I'll do another part specifically on pitch accent and, how to learn pitch accent and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to give you the real basics now so that you have enough to be able to go in and start learning vocab. So when you're talking about Kansai pitch accent, it can go up and down. And so for each mora, so that'd be like sound. So for example, gakko would be ga, and then the little tsu, and then ko u. So those are 4 moras, right? And so for each mora, it can be high or low in Kansai pitch accent. And because of that, you can the notation for it is they use capital L for low and capital H for high. And so it'll look something like this for words, all right? For example, the word I said before, you'll have otoko, which would go high, low, low, otoko. Or then you've got another word in standard Japanese, it'll be mainichi. It goes down, mainichi. At least I think it goes down. I might be wrong. I don't speak standard Japanese. But in Kansai pitch, it'll be low, low, high, low. So it'll be mainichi. And that's the pitch accent of it. Mainichi. And so that's the kind of notation you're using. I don't know if you could hear that when I just said it there, but eventually your ears will get used to it and all of that. But anyway, that's the kind of notation you're going to need to know for what pitch accent is. The reason I'm saying that now is because when you start learning words, you're also going to be learning the pitch with that word. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way, we're going to go into your first kind of step into learning words. So before you can start learning grammar, I really think it's good to know at least some words beforehand, because it definitely makes it a lot easier once you start learning grammar if you already know, say, 1,000 words or whatever. So I think the quickest way to acquire these 1,000 words is go and use a pre-made deck initially. And so the pre-made deck that I recommend is the deck that was made by Fit Moon in my Discord, and he made the Kansai Ben JLPT N5 1K deck. So it's the Kansai Ben because the pitch accent in it is going to be for Kansai. So it'll have that LH notation. So you'll see that. There's no audio of it, but you don't really necessarily need audio if you can read hiragana, katakana and all that, because, the sounds and all that don't change too much. So you can have a good, kind of guess of what they sound like. And plus you're going to be hearing these words so much in your immersion. That's where you're really going to get the pronunciation on point. But anyway, I really recommend jumping into the Discord if you want to use this deck. I'll put a link for the deck itself in the description anyway, but I recommend jumping in the Discord, especially since you can talk to Fit Moon, the bloke who made this deck, and ask him questions about it and all different things. And in the Discord as well, we've got some more explanations of what pitch accent is, especially for the Kansai dialect and all of that, which will help you along your way. So yeah, I recommend downloading this 1K deck into your Anki and going through and maybe doing, it really depends on what you want to do, but I'd say at least 15 words a day from this deck until you get all the way through. And then once you've gotten through this whole deck, I really recommend moving on to grammar. And that'll be the next video in this series. It'll come out really soon, so you won't have to wait very long for that. But once you've done these 1K words, I recommend moving into grammar. And from there, then you can go in and start learning more words after that. Now you might say, okay, well, after I've done this 1K deck and done grammar, now what's the next step? Like, how am I going to get more words? Do I get another pre-made deck? What do I do? And so my answer to this is, it really depends on what you want to do, yeah? So there are other pre-made decks, and some people like pre-made decks. They can go in and find a good pre-made deck and use that. We've got some really good ones in the Discord. We've got some, that are made from frequency lists of a YouTuber's vocabulary. Hikaru, the YouTuber, which you've probably heard me mention in my other videos. Someone's gone through and made a frequency list of all the words that he uses in his videos, and they put that into a deck. And I think FitMoon made an 18K word deck or something ridiculous like that. So you can use that if you're into pre-made decks. So that's always one option. The second option is you can go and you can sentence mine. If you don't know what sentence mining is, what that entails is you go in to something you're immersing in, whether that be YouTube, a book, Twitter, whatever that is, go in and take, mine, get some words from that and put that into your Anki by yourself. So there's two kind of big ways that I would recommend doing this. You've got from books, which is, I never really did that myself, but I think, I could be wrong here, but you can go into DJT and stuff, and they've got good resources if you want to do that. If you want to go mine from books and stuff, if that's what you're into, I recommend that. I think they've got some really good resources, so go check those out. And who would have thought the day would come that I'd actually recommend something from DJT? Hey, that's a bit different. But yeah, go into DJT server or whatever, go look at their resources if you want to check that out, if you're interested in sentence mining and getting words from books, if you like reading books and all of that. But if you're like me and you're not too into books and you're more into, YouTube and videos and audio content like that, there's another way that you can mine sentences, and that's from YouTube, Twitter, all those kinds of things. Now I'll go into a bit how you do this, because with the book stuff, I don't really know it too well. So I don't want to explain something that I don't specialize in. So go check out some other resources if you're interested in that. But in regards to YouTube and Twitter and all that, I feel like that's how I learn Japanese. So I feel like I can, provide some insight on how to do that. Now, in regards to sentence mining from YouTube, not only have I done that for Japanese, I'm also doing it currently for Slovak. And so initially, the way that I'd recommend doing this is that it tends to be the case that in YouTube videos, the title and description, the words that are used in them are going to be used quite frequently in the videos. It makes sense, right? Because whatever you put in the title, that's what the video is going to be about. So in the initial stages, I recommend, go on through the titles and all of that and say, copy paste your title into a Word document. And from there, you'll have, a sentence, right? There'll be the title of video. And say, half of those words. Say, none of those words. Let's give an extreme example. None of those words. What are you going to do? What I would do is make singular word cards on your Anki. So this is what this is going to look like. Here's an example here. You'll have a word that you don't know on the front of the card, and then on the back of the card, you go to, say, a dictionary website. I recommend jiso.org. If you don't know that, I'll link it in the description. But you go to jiso.org. Here's it here, and you take the the definition of that word and you put it in that card. So I hope that's clear what I'm saying there. But that's what you do to get singular word cards. Then as you get a bit more advanced, and you start to get more and more vocab, you'll start to come across things, say like a full sentence, right? Where you don't know one word. And that's what you really want to look for, right? In the beginning stages, it's going to be hard to find sentences like this. But once you get to a certain level where these start to appear more and more, you want to be specifically looking for these, because then you can make what is called sentence cards. So you put the whole sentence on the front of the card, and you put on the back, you put the definition and the reading and all that of the one word that you don't know. Now, the reason that this is effective, right, is for one, you're going to have all the context around it, which is going to explain to you, give you some hints onto what the meaning of that word is. But another thing is that although you're not learning to recognize that word in isolation, it's very rare in, say, your immersion or daily life when you're using Japanese to actually see one word in isolation from everything else. Like when you think about it, everything's kind of in context of one thing or another. It's very rare you see a singular word on its own. And if you do, it's usually a pretty simple word. So because of that fact, it is effective to be memorizing words with the sentence around it, with the context. It helps, you can add more cards a day then as well, and you'll be able to learn and remember words a lot better. These sentences here though, that you've got the full sentence and there's one word you don't know, they're called I+1 sentences. I've got absolutely no idea why they're called that, but for whatever reason, that's what they're called. I learned it as being called that. But anyway, you want to look for sentences like that once you get to a certain level in your immersion. But until you reach the level where those kind of sentences become quite frequent, it's okay to be doing singular word cards from, say, titles of videos or descriptions. Then once your listening gets a lot better, then you can start going in and you'll see, like, you'll start to be able to pick out a lot of words, right? And so you'll pick out words that you don't know when you're listening. But as you watch, you'll probably hear certain words over and over again. You'll be like, what's that word mean? Because you hear it every now and then, and it starts to stick in your head. Like, what does that mean? That's the perfect word to look up and add into a singular word card or a sentence card or whatever in your Anki. It's going to stick amazingly because you've already kind of remembered it, as evident by the fact that it sticks out in your head when you hear it. So it's going to be very easy for you to remember it. So yeah, those are kind of the best words you want to be getting as well from your listening. As well, there you can also go and say, a lot of YouTube videos have hard subs, right? So if you want, and you can, pause the video, take sentences from there, which obviously in the beginning stages, that's very difficult, which is why I said, use descriptions, video titles and all that. But once you get a bit more advanced, you can go in and start taking sentences from the middle of videos and that, and continue to do what you do and start learning more and more words and that through this process. I hope I'm making this clear enough. Like, I don't know, it's really difficult to explain without directly showing you, but it would, it's kind of difficult to show as well. So if there's any questions about this process, please leave it in the description. I'll make another video explaining that because, this is a big process, of course, learning words and that. It is one of the, real fundamental parts of learning a language, acquiring vocabulary. So let me know in the comments if you've got any questions about this process and I'll answer them in another video or reply to your comment or something like that. Now, in regards to mining words from something say as Twitter, if you're going to mine words from Twitter, it's kind of similar to the way you do it for YouTube titles, descriptions and all things like that. So just follow the same kind of rules that I explained for the descriptions and video titles and apply that to Twitter this time. The interesting thing though with vocabulary is that you can actually also acquire it just from immersion. The better you get in Japanese, the easier this becomes. But like, for instance, there's a lot of words I know in Japanese, which I've, probably never even looked up. Some of them I looked up, some of them I haven't. But some of them, like, you just hear them so many times and like, you understand everything around the word and you hear it so many times that you just kind of learn the word from context and what it means. So don't think that Anki is 100% necessary for any word acquirement, okay? There's other ways to learn words and that. There's, for example, a good example, there's a dude learning English using this whole immersion method. You might know him already. His name's Rodo, if I say my real Aussie accent, but Rodo, he's Rodo Ozeki. He's, learning English through this immersion, but he doesn't really use Anki anymore, I don't think. He just reads and all of that, and that's enough for him. He's still learning words, you look up words and you acquire them because you hear them over and over again. So again, this comes back to what I said in the first part of this whole series, is that immersion is key, and that's the whole key to, really improving in this language. So yeah, you can still learn words without putting them into your Anki, just by hearing them so much in your immersion. And so don't think Anki is the be-all end-all of language gains in terms of learning vocab. Also, one thing not many people talk about is there's different levels to knowing words. You can say level 0 is when you've never heard the word, never looked it up, or never, done anything. Then level 1 might be when you stick it in Anki and you've put it in Anki and reviewed it a little bit. And, if you do get that Anki card, most of the time you get it correct. That's level 1. Level 2, you're able to like read it, in the wild, say like in a description or YouTube title, and you can be like, what's that? Oh, that means this, yeah? And you can kind of get it. And level 3, you might hear it, in audio and you can pick it up. And like, then, I don't know, the next level might be you can use it in your output. So there's different levels to knowing words. I hope it's clear what I'm saying here, but what I mean is like, you don't know or not know a word. There's different levels to knowing words. So the initial stage of just getting the word and like being able to recognize it a little bit, like, like I said, recognize a bit in the wild, that's the process of Anki. Yeah. That's the initial acquirement of that vocabulary. But after that, what it really is your immersion, which solidifies that knowledge and gives you the ability to pick it out easier and easier when you're listening, and as well use it in your own output. So once again, like I say every 2 seconds, immersion is key in this entire process. Now, the final topic I want to touch upon is the place of learning vocab and using Anki in the entirety of, learning Japanese. Some people really put way too much emphasis on learning vocab. They spend hours and hours a day adding new Anki cards, reviewing cards and all this. It takes so much away from your immersion time. You want to be still, really prioritizing your immersion time rather than, how many words you're adding a day or reviewing a day. Like, for example, yeah, if you knew 3,000 words and you could, pick them up easily in listening, you would be able to understand almost everything, right? At least in regards to like watching YouTube videos and that. But yet there's these people who say have like 6, 7, 8,000 bloody cards in their Anki and they barely understand anything. But if you were to just never immerse and learn 3,000 words, I guarantee you could watch all these YouTube videos and stuff. You wouldn't have a bloody clue what they're saying, half of them. Now, the reason for this is because your ears still aren't at that level where they can pick up these words. And like I was saying before, you haven't reached that top level of knowing a word yet. You've got the level 1, level 2 or whatever that Anki gives you, but you haven't heard it enough in your immersion to really solidify your knowledge of that word and be able to pick it up in your immersion. So that's why I believe you really should be prioritizing immersion over Anki and learning vocab, because when you're learning vocab, the actual number of vocab you need is very, very small compared to what people expect it to be. I think this is because people get to say 3, 4, 5,000 words and they still don't understand anything. Then they're not like, oh, that must be because I haven't immersed enough and my brain's not used to listening, so I can't pick out the words yet. That's not how they think. They think, oh no, the reason I can't understand enough yet is because I don't know enough words. But they're really I think they're a bit misled in that fact. I don't think that's the case. Because for example, my brother learned Russian, right? And I think he had 3,000-4,000 words in his Anki, which is not much, compared to what some people say you need. And he understood all of YouTube and he's fine with Russian now. He can speak, do whatever in the language. And he only had that many words because, do you know what he's doing all day? He's immersing all day, every day. Same thing I did in Japanese, and look at the results I got. At the end of the day, like I've been saying through this entire video again, immersion is the key to progressing in Japanese and getting better and better. Even in terms of vocab, because that's what solidifies your knowledge of the vocab and allows you to pick it out in your immersion and then eventually use it in your own output. I know I said that was the last topic, but one other thing is because of what I just said, this is also why you need to keep the Anki and all that real simple. Don't get too obsessed with how to optimize acquiring as many words and learning as many words in Anki as possible, as quick as possible, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. While vocab is very essential to learning the language, Anki is only a small part of acquiring the vocab. The immersion is where you really acquire that vocab. So just look at Anki for what it is, and that's, a real basic tool to kind of just get that vocab in your head at the start. And so don't get too carried away, keep it simple, and don't get too obsessed with optimizing Anki and all of that. Just keep it simple, learn words, and then immerse, That's all you need to be doing. Don't think about it too much. Just do it. I think the biggest problem a lot of people have in this community is they spend so much time thinking about how to optimize things or, arguing with people. No, do it like this, do it like this. No, you should be doing this. They spend so much time doing that they're not immersing, they're not doing nothing. And that's why, they end up being absolute shit, because they're wasting all their time doing all this pointless stuff when they should just shut the fuck up and just go listen to stuff, That's the whole point of this. Not sit around arguing with people about pointless shit, Just go listen, go immerse, go read, do whatever you want. Go watch anime, who cares? Do whatever. And actually make gains in the language rather than sitting around arguing with people and trying to think about how to optimize things. You're just wasting your time. Keep it simple, immerse, and just shut the fuck up and do what you have to do, and stop complaining and thinking about different ways to optimize things. Just do what you know what you have to do it consistently, and you'll get the results you need. That's it. Don't overcomplicate things. You don't need to. Anyway, that's it for this video. That's all I really wanted to talk about in regards to vocab. Like I said before, if you have any questions about YouTube and all of that and how to properly mine from that, if I wasn't clear enough in this, leave some comments and I'll make a separate video detailing properly the actual way of doing it and giving some examples and all of that. Also, jump in the Discord so you can get the pre-made deck by FitMoon, and if you're interested, you can also get the Hikaru, YouTube frequency deck, the 18K massive one if you want it. And yeah, there's a good stuff in the Discord in general either way, so jump in there, check that out. And yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks.